Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Shed Geek Podcast. A lot of fun today. Got Jenna on the show. I'll tell you what, Jenna, just introduce yourself a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So my name is Jenna Urban. I am a shed dealer with my husband for LMJ Sheds. We are right outside of Scranton, Pennsylvania in Dunmore. And I have been in the industry for just under 2 years, and I had no idea that this existed, honestly. If you told me 5 years ago that I would be a shed dealer, I would have probably laughed in your face.
Yeah, what is that? What's a shed dealer? What are you talking about?
Right.
So how did your introduction to the industry happen? How did you... nobody sets out to be a shed dealer necessarily immediately.
Right.
But how did it come together?
So my husband owns a landscaping company, Lawn and Order Landscaping. So he was, during COVID, he was putting in a lot of shed pads, it was obviously shed sales were up, and he was very busy with those requests. So he had said to me, I was a teacher at the time, and I was trying to plan for like the summer. We had all this COVID money, the school districts, and they were offering, different classes to teach in the summer. And I said, I think I'm going to teach summer school. And he said, well, actually, I think you're going to sell sheds. And I was like, what? And he's like, I think we should start selling sheds. We could add it to the landscaping lot, So he reached out to a couple different companies. Nobody really got back to him. And then Sheds Direct was one of them that came back to us, and, they came up and met with us, and we were really happy with them to start this journey. So I was kind of thrown into it, but my background is, as I mentioned, as an educator. I have my master's in IT. So I just kind of was like, oh, well, I could do a lot of the online stuff, if he could do a lot of the selling. I was never thinking I could be like a shed salesperson, right? And actually, my daughter, we joked at one time because she was like, how can I tell my friends like that you said sell sheds? And I'm like, yeah, right? Like, she's like, what do I tell people? I'm like, I don't know. Tell them that like we just started another business, So we added a couple sheds to our landscaping lot, and that was like right during COVID. In the meantime, like they were selling. I did not go teach summer school that summer, and I sold sheds, and I went back that fall, and it was trying to balance the shed sales and the calls in between my classes, and I found it very difficult. So after a couple months of doing that, we really sat down, my husband and I, and we were like, maybe there's money to be made in this business that's not just a side thing. So I ended up leaving my teaching profession to sell sheds full time. In the meantime, we bought a second lot. We moved our sheds across the street, actually. So I guess it would be our first lot. We filled that lot with sheds, and then we went into a partnership with my sister-in-law. Her in-laws had another property, so we opened up a second location that's about 30 miles away from here.
Okay, great. So what an introduction, right? To I think you're going to sell sheds to I'm selling sheds, and this is going great. It's going well enough that I don't have to go back to work full time. There's a lot of individuals out there that I think that's one thing they struggle with. Me and Anthony Mitchell of Outdoor Options in Georgia was talking a lot about that. And he's like, that's one thing that with trying to get labor in that we've had to try to show people, or I think Jeremy Martin and Cabin Connections, those guys kind of come to mind because they're like, yeah, I mean, there's a really good living that you can make doing this. And it's kind of hard to almost convince someone that this is still something that's on the rise. A lot of people feel like it's kind of, hit its bubble and, but shed sales seem to just keep growing and growing constantly. And if you compare it to the like backyard storage compared to like a traditional storage unit, I mean, they're always full.
Right.
So people are looking to eventually get something in their backyard. It's really just being able to have a good understanding of what the shed selling perspective is, what you can do, what can be accomplished.
Right.
Were you surprised?
I was. You know what? I think the biggest surprise for me was the amount of relationships that I made, in doing the sale and becoming friends really with the customers. So I don't know a lot about the shed building process. I didn't know a lot. So I was like, well, every time I sell a shed, I learn something new. I would listen to what my husband how he would talk to people. And then I realized that's not my strength to know 2x6s, 2x4s. They're things that I could talk about. Mm-hmm. My strength was knowing okay, so what do you need a shed for? What do you need to put in? I know I have 3 kids and I'm the same way. I'm running out of storage. So I think the loft might be good for you, or where you can hang your bikes, or if you were going to use it by the pool, maybe you could put a sheet up here and have the kids change on this side and then use this for storage. So it's kind of listening to the customer and what they need and kind of building those relationships alongside of it. And
keep
kind
talking.
of,
I'm going to scoot around here where I'm a little more comfortable.
Oh, you're good. So I think I taught myself the business of sheds, but I have a background, like I said, in IT and business, and I've dabbled in, different types of side hustles, marketing type of things. So I kind of have an idea of the customer service end, and it was just kind of taking it to another level with the sales, right? Because I'm not the type of salesperson that's going to be pushing everybody. So originally, when I started, I went full force, and I was like, okay, here's what we're going to do: Google Ads. I'm going to get all these names and numbers, and then I started calling people, and they were basically like, "Why are you calling me? How did you get my phone number?" And I was like, "Well, Facebook ad." I just couldn't. That wasn't the way that I could sell, right? Mm-hmm. So it took me about a year to learn my strengths and my weaknesses, and to kind of take what I know how to do and I'm comfortable doing, and not putting that pressure on people. It's more educating them, letting them know the benefits, but giving them the space and kind of knowing when to, come in and really make the sale.
Well, and it's kind of complemented your husband's work, right? I mean, with the landscaping. I mean, oftentimes outside of just putting down pads, which is that really big here? And I guess it
really is, yeah. The site preparation is very big. So, and it's working hand in hand together with him. Just kind of being able to say to somebody well, we have a landscaping company that could give you, an estimate on what type of site prep that you would need. But or myself, I never thought I would be the person going out and looking at the site prep, and being able to figure out okay, should he get gravel? Should they get cement? Those type of things. I've always kind of left it up to him, but now he's so busy with landscaping season that I'm taking that role on as well. He's still doing the site prep, but I'm just kind of going out and taking pictures, and then, we're meeting up later to say this is what it looks like, this is what I think can be done, and so forth.
What's kind of surprised you now in almost 2 years that you didn't see coming?
So I think that, like you mentioned before, I think people think that, how many sheds could you possibly sell, right? So I think my family was like, you are leaving a teaching position to sell sheds? They thought I was nuts, but it's not the same people. It's not people mm-hmm. that we know. It's people that are coming from all over, and Sheds Direct has such a quality shed build that people are looking for that, and they'll stop at the lot and they notice the difference in our builds. So I think that has shocked me the most, that people have traveled, or people purchasing without even looking at it. I'm a Facebook marketplace ad, and they're, dropping $9,000 on a shed, and I'm like, oh my God, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Without looking at it, without touching it. Yeah. Most people typically they at least want to come in and see something tangible,
right,
before they're spending their money.
Right, but when you look at the direction, though, people are buying cars online and not seeing it. True. So then I'm like, wow, is that the direction we're going with? Online sales are going to be more popular than people taking the traditional route. I'm going to stop by the lot. It's just different generations of who's building houses now, right? So
I think we're in a middle.
Right.
I don't know how to explain it. I don't think we're ever really going to abandon one way or the other. Some of the points I make before with like technology. Like recently somebody was talking about how much they hated the self-checkout. And I was talking about like, well, everything used to be full service gas stations too.
Right.
And now everything's self-service gas stations. Imagine the people who were getting their gas pumped for them be like, I can't believe someone's going to make me get out and pump my own gas. And then that's the way groceries has kind of turned, whenever self-checkout. So I don't know. It just kind of seems like with the addition of technology comes the addition of new sales structures and just platforms and ways to do that. Are you a shed manufacturer, dealer, or hauler looking for a trusted resource to build or upgrade your website? Do you need a simple business website or a more robust and dynamic e-commerce site? Are you looking for an affordable option with digital marketing solutions for your small business? Are you looking for paid ads using Google search engines or social media platforms to reach a new audience? If you answered yes to any of these questions, it's time to check out Troyer Websites of Texas. Did you know that 46% of the 5.6 billion searches made each day are for local businesses? At Troyer's, our SEO strategies will help you get on the first page of search results for your shed business. At Troyer Websites of Texas, you will be sure to get 5-star customer service with proficiency and skill. Troyer Websites just launched their managed digital services to incorporate all your marketing needs into a single dashboard. Here at the Shed Geek Podcast, we trusted the team at Troyer Websites of Texas to develop our website, and we couldn't be happier with the results. To know more or schedule a discovery call, simply contact the Shed Geek at 618-309-3648 or email info@shedgeek.com. Yeah, with your IT experience and background, I would almost be curious your thoughts on online sales and is it going that way? Is it going to go that way completely, or is it going to always be a mix of brick and mortar and some people purchasing? Unfortunately, whenever I was selling sheds, I didn't get an opportunity to use a lot of these platforms.
Right.
Most people still came in, but you tried to go out and get your lead.
Right.
You ran your campaigns, your drip campaigns, or whatever you were doing. Facebook was always the way to get people in.
Right.
It seemed like we were at the tail end of Craigslist, but Facebook was always still that way to get people in. Do you do anything different?
So what I've been doing, so with all those leads that I got from Facebook, I just knew that calling people was just not going to work for me. So I took their emails, and I have experience. I was a blogger at one point when I was on maternity with my younger kids. So I blogged for about 4 or 5 years, and I did affiliate marketing. So I took my knowledge of both of those and, thought, well, I'm going to do a newsletter, So I've implemented, every 2 weeks sending out a newsletter, and I have a pretty good, over 30% open rate. Mm-hmm. And then I've noticed that I don't really get that many unsubscribers. So my newsletter is, educating and selling, just kind of updating the customers because, you don't know, maybe they just weren't ready to buy at that time. So I just want to make sure that I'm keeping them in the loop. So I enjoy doing that. But again, with the technology, now I could use AI. I love that episode that you had about AI.
It's on the way. It's on the way. It really is. Yes. Like I joined a AI and ChatGPT Facebook group to learn little secrets and things that you can do. I think you have to embrace these things with integrity. I was watching a podcast with, I know some people might not be a big fan, but with Joe Rogan and Elon Musk, and listening to Elon's explanation of ChatGPT and what AI is doing and what it can do. And it's just very interesting to see how that affects our little world of shed selling.
Right. No, and it's huge, just to be able, and just knowing how to use it properly. So, I listen to a lot of those podcasts as well. And so implementing the newsletter, using ChatGPT to help me write my blog post. It used to take me a long time to write blog posts. So now I'm able to do that. I'm able to kind of put some of the affiliate marketing into that. So I'm making money different ways and also helping out my customers. So it's utilizing that, also I use Asana for just management within my team. I have an intern and I have another dealership. So just the way that I could communicate with them for tasks and for my own tasks. And it's very helpful for like just for me to keep notes. I get a lot of phone calls and a lot of people, emailing like, if you do have any repos, like, so then I put their name on a list, so then I could go back and search who's looking for a repo. So just staying organized and getting those operations, right? Like, I don't want to forget about anybody. Like, I may go back to them in 6 months and be like, hey, like, I know you were looking for, this style. It just went on sale, just updating them with that information.
Absolutely.
So that, I think having my background in education, so everything that I've done in my past, whether it's, direct sales type of thing, like everything that I've done has kind of gotten me to this point that I could kind of do my own bit. Like, I know what I'm doing and still learning new things every day, but utilizing my strengths, right? So like, it might not be, to know everything about TechShield, but I know how to kind of educate the customers and do the research myself, and I'll find out. And I'm very honest with people. And I think when they come to the lot, like, I'll say, oh gosh, like, I don't know, but like, I'll find out for you and get back to you. I'm not going to pretend that I know, the difference between a 2x4 to 2x6 and know how they line up or why the hurricane ties are beneficial, like those type of things. Like, I had to learn. I had no idea there were hurricane ties in sheds, and why you needed them. So it's just kind of constantly educating myself and listening to podcasts. Like, I really enjoy your podcast and the guests that you have, and taking little bits from each one and then implementing them in my own business.
Absolutely. I always say not every podcast is for every person, but, the listener count seems to stay up. So I tend to think there's about 2,000 to 3,000 listeners, and I think there's about 1,000 that are steady. They go back and they listen, and hey, this episode's not for me, or this one I'm really into, or whatever it is. So it's a lot of fun to be able to do that. And I'm always amazed at, like you said, a new shed dealer starts. One of the biggest things is kind of like, hope you figure it out, so like, you have to learn. There's a whole large amount of stuff for you to learn, especially if you've not been around sheds, construction of any kind.
Right.
Somebody starts talking about double top plates or single top plates. What are you talking about? Are 16 on center, these 24? And some of your customers really care. Some of them are just tire kickers. They're from the I'll be back family or whatever. But they just want to, I can build it cheaper. I can do it, whatever.
Yes.
But for the people who really care about the construction and want to know, that's where product knowledge is super beneficial. To know your product, to know your warranties, to know to be able to explain everything to them to the best of your knowledge thoroughly. But then there's this whole other part of sales. It's not just the actual sale. It's acquiring the leads, managing the leads, knowing what to do with them, the follow-ups.
Right.
I know some folks that take sales to a whole new level, put a mirror across from their self, so that they see their self in the mirror, to make sure they're not slouching. And whenever they're talking, they're making sure that they're being very professional and everything. I never took it to that level, but some people will say they found success and things like that. One thing we did that I thought was kind of cool, whenever we were researching a bunch of different things about sales, we got a round table, like a kitchen table, with 4 chairs. It was like a high top.
Okay.
And people would come in and they would sit down at the high top. And the thought and the psychology behind it was, a desk sort of puts you in think of buying a car, and someone's on the opposite side of the desk, or the boss is on the opposite side of the desk. And there's like this power struggle where there's like, some sense of inferiority or whatever if you're on the opposite side. But if you're around a kitchen table, who do you sit at the kitchen table with? Your family and your friends.
Right.
And hey, we're not selling something here. We're just kind of conversating. So the round table was meant to kind of take that pressure off of, there's no head seat of the table and all of that kind of thing. And that, I think that worked beneficially for us, because we felt like a lot of people came in and felt at home to just sit there and chat with us. Wednesdays, everybody disagrees with this, but Wednesdays and rainy days was like a saying for us. Wednesday, the thought behind it was Monday, Tuesday are rough, but Wednesday's hump day, right? And halfway through Wednesday, emotionally, psychologically, excuse me, you start to like look forward to the weekend. And so anytime afternoon, people are more favorable in their psychology. Now, Friday, they got their mind on the weekend, don't even put an ad out. But And then rainy days, we felt like because someone who was serious enough to come in the rain was serious enough to buy, they were also probably thinking about, I need to get that mower or that motorcycle or whatever it is out of the rain. So they would come in. So those are just the little bits of psychology. And we learned those from reading books, from listening to podcasts, from...
Right.
I mean, that's why these things are beneficial. You used to be a podcaster yourself, you were telling me.
Right. Yeah. So it's, and again, like, it's just taking things that like I am interested in and going out and learning about them. Yeah. And then really everything's figure outable, right? Like just trying it. And so the same thing with the sheds. I was like, yeah, well, I'll try it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? You know, I'll sell a couple sheds, make some extra money, maybe go on an extra vacation. So, you know, now that it's become really my full-time income, so things have shifted, you know, because I'm obviously putting more energy into it and making sure that, you know, there's things that have to get paid because I'm using more of the tools that I mentioned that you have to pay for and so forth, and, you know, paying for, you know, insurance and all the stuff that comes along with that. You know, again, no idea that this was part of the deal, part of the having a dealership. So, you know, it definitely was a learning curve. It's something that, you know, both my husband and I instill in our children, right, to be your own boss. So, again, going back to the flexibility and putting up boundaries. So, at first, you know, I didn't want to lose a sale because if it was 9 o'clock at night, I was driving up, you know, after my kid's basketball game or this and that and driving up and meeting somebody. But now it's putting up the boundary, like, listen, like, I will get back to you tomorrow. And usually if they want to buy, they'll wait till tomorrow, you know, like, and being honest, like, I'm not going to come meet you. It's 7 o'clock. I just put dinner on the table for my kids. Like, so the reason that I want to, you know, be successful in the business is so I could have the flexibility to be the mom that I want to be right now in the season of life that I am with my kids, you know, 16, 13, and 11. They're very busy. Yep. So I'm just honest with people. And a lot of people understand, you know, there are some people that are like, well, I'm going to go somewhere else. And I'm like that. And I'm okay with it. Okay. Like if you want to go somewhere else because I can't meet you at the lot at 7 o'clock because my kids have a basketball game, like that's my priority right now. So it's just funny how things, like, I originally became a teacher because I wanted to have my summers off to be with my kids. And now I laugh because now I'm like, oh my God, I'm basically working all summer. But then this was the first year that I didn't work in the winter. Yeah. Right? Like, not that I didn't work, but like it wasn't as busy in the winter. So I had that downtime to go into the school and volunteer and do things that I wasn't able to do, you know, when I was working full time. And so I was a different type of mom to my kids, you know. I didn't have that pressure, and I got to work my own schedule, you know. But again, coming up with your own schedule, you know, like being disciplined enough to be like, okay, like
that's a word,
you know,
right there.
like this day on Mondays, I'm going to work on, you know, doing this on my marketing and have my email, you know, and then Google my business. Like, there's so many things that go along with it and keeping up with that. I basically have to kind of schedule it every 2 weeks and make sure that I'm sticking to the schedule.
You have more freedom probably now more than ever. I sort of feel the same way with what I'm doing with the podcast, but freedom does not come without discipline.
Right.
And that's the one word that I would specifically use for my explanation. How are you able to stay your own boss? It requires a great deal of discipline, in my opinion. It's not like, you still have to get up in the morning. I know folks who take that very serious. Like, even folks who work at home, they get up and they put on like a blazer and, you know, a tie, and they sit down at their desk and they say, I have to have that mentally to be able to get into that space. I'm thankful I don't have to do that. Right. I throw a hoodie on when I'm home and I'm good.
I'm still like it. And I said I went from suits to sweatpants. Yeah. Right? I'm like, I basically am like in the same, you know, leggings and sneakers, and I don't get dressed up. But I know what you mean mentally to kind of prepare for the day.
There's something you have to do, even if it's not put on a suit and tie or something like that. There's something you have to do to tell yourself. It takes a great deal of discipline because you have freedom. But you know what? Even the Bible says, don't with freedom don't take your own yoke. I'm gonna terribly mess this up. I'm paraphrasing, but my yoke is lighter.
Right.
God says, so the idea being freedom comes with responsibility,
Right.
and like, why pick up your own like yoke because you don't want to you don't want to go out here. And I learned that as a young guy. I'm trying to teach that to my son now, who's 18. He'll be 19 this year. Great deal of freedom right now with graduating high school and going to college, and is going for computer science. Real smart kid. And I was like, yeah, maybe he could help me and work with me. And kind of like me and you were joking, we were going to put like the logo on the TV, and it's like, we're going to have to go get your 11-year-old to find out how to do that, because that's the way the generations are going.
Right.
That's all of that translates into sales. It translates into how you operate in business in general.
Right.
Post-COVID, so many people are choosing to buy from a different way. It really doesn't matter how we want to sell. It really matters how the customers want to buy.
Right.
So like, even whenever I have freedom, maximum freedom in my schedule, like for me, my advertisers are my boss in a sense, because they're the ones that I'm trying to work for. They're the ones that I'm trying to please. They're the ones that I'm trying to stay disciplined, and gain more or whatever.
Right.
So, for you, I love the idea of staying disciplined with your customer.
Yeah. And it's not that like at night, like if I did, like there are times, believe me, there are times that it's a trade-off, right? Like I spend the whole day at the school, or I'm running from my kids all over the place. And then it might be 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night that I'm jumping on the computer to get those sales closed. I'm on the phone with the customers, who's getting deliveries tomorrow. And I'm messaging them, but it's the flexibility that I have. I could do that later on at night once they're settled and everything's done, and I have that window to kind of do what I want in between. So that's what I'm so grateful for, and that this industry has given me that flexibility to do.
Hey guys, this is the Shed Geek, and I'm here to tell you about the latest in financial innovation to hit the shed industry. It's a program called Backyard Finance. Everywhere I go, shed manufacturers and shed sellers are always asking, how can I get a better payment option for my customer? At Backyard Finance, they're making this a reality. You might be asking, how do I sign up? Simple, just go to Backyard Finance, click on the Get Started Now button, and create an account. After that, you'll have 200 plus banks competing to give your customer the best financial terms possible. With Backyard Finance, you can service your customers two ways: direct to customer lending or direct to merchant lending. With direct to merchant lending, simply fill out an application. It takes about 2 to 4 weeks to process that application, but it'll allow you a variety of financing options to make you a more competitive retailer. With FICO scores as low as 500, 600, or 700 plus, your customers will receive financing options with APRs as low as 2.99% or as high as 29.99%. Credit applications are approved in just 15 to 45 seconds. To know more, contact Backyard Finance at 833-692-2286 or email info@backyardfinance.com today. Backyard Finance, funding backyard dreams. One of my favorite podcasters is Rob Jepson. He runs a sales podcast, basically, and he had a guest on there one time talking about burnout. And this is one of the biggest things that you have to be, I think, cognitive of whenever it comes to being your own boss. And it's a great episode. I'd love to share it at some point in like my email newsletter. I wanted to even touch base on that. You were talking about like your open rate and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, same thing. You're speaking my language. I mean, that's one thing I'm trying to do is always increase the open rate. Keep subscribers, add subscribers. I want to send the newsletter out to more people. If there are more people who want the newsletter, please message me at info@shedgeek.com. I'd like to be able to send you that newsletter. It'll have a bio. There's ways for advertisers on there to do like digital print ads on there, get links and stuff like that. So that's my little sales pitch there. But by all means, I want to try to start, in a sense, blogging, I guess you'd say, on there.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I want to start adding, because I'm going from, some people like to read, some people like to listen, some people like to watch. I mean, it's really just depends on your avenue of getting your resource and your information. So I'm trying to do all of that. I'm trying to be available for all of that.
Right.
But getting back to burnout, the one thing he talked about was, going and clocking in, and I've done this before because I've had the job where you go and you punch the time clock and you punch it on the way home. And that whenever you leave to go home, that's work. Yes. And home is home.
Yes.
The downside is you have to be disciplined again to try and figure out, am I doing too much work when I'm at home, or am I doing too much home and I should be working more?
Right.
It's a challenge that me and my wife we've talked about extensively.
And it really is hard. I've heard recently it's not finding the balance, it's finding the harmony, right? So last year it was funny because my mom, she was here with my kids at the pool at our house watching them because I was running back and forth from the shed lot to here and helping, doing estimates and so forth. And she was like, boy, you're working harder now than you did when you worked full time. and that's the truth, but it's working for myself, right? And kind of building the business. So our business is LMJ. Our kids are Lucas, Molly, and Jackson. So we kind of put the business in their names because we wanted to build something that they could be proud of, and then maybe eventually that's something that they may want to do. Now, I don't know if my daughter will want to be a shed salesperson, right? But I do know that she enjoys making TikToks and doing Instagram reels. So that's something that I try to say, hey, I'll pay you to do some of my Instagram reels or my TikToks. And, I bring them up and they do some videos in front of the sheds. And, we had our a big open house and kind of a grand opening in April, and they came up and they did some videos for us, and they were really into it. But then they know the rewards, to be able to get paid for it, at my 16-year-old, all of his friends are looking for summer jobs. And I'm like, hey, you could go mow lawns for Dad, or you could come do some digital marketing for me. And he does my Canva, and he does a lot of my graphics because he's really, like your son, into the computers and stuff like that. And I'm just trying to take advantage of what they are willing to do. They may not go sit on a shed lot all day and try to sell sheds. They're not into that, but they are into the digital aspect. So with my background in IT, I try to reel them into the business, by incentives like paying them, to do some of the stuff they already enjoy doing. Yeah. And I want them to realize that in life, to be happy, and to do something, find a job that it's something that you enjoy doing and that you could get paid for, so.
I don't feel like I work anymore. I always joke about, I'm always afraid if things dry up, I'll have to take a real job. And it's always, I mean it jokingly, but I think there is some truth to the old adage, find something you enjoy, you won't have to work.
Right.
I genuinely enjoy interviewing people. And I genuinely enjoy that I get to do that in the shed industry. It's cool that it's being able to take me into different places. I've struggled with the idea of okay, well, what do I want to do long term? I'm 130 episodes, over 2 years in now. I think I can keep doing this. Right. I don't see any stop in the near future. I want to keep doing it. I still enjoy it. So until I get to a point to where I say I just don't like it, I don't like what I'm doing. I do enjoy what I'm doing. I want to do what I'm doing more.
Right.
One of the things we've been talking about is doing something for post frame, or doing something for carports,
right.
And metal structures and things like that. I really think there's a space there that can be captured with the same formula of what we've been doing. My wife is with me now full time, so that works out. That's really awesome. Good. Yeah. I often think at times about getting back into sheds to some extent. Just maybe selling some sheds in our hometown, and then I think, I don't know, is it my space? Is it where I want to be? It's not something I want to do all the time, but it's really to stay connected, Jenna. For me, it's to stay connected and be relevant. I don't want to become irrelevant in my understanding of where the industry is going, because I can talk about what I've done, but it's important to talk about, what you're still doing, being connected to the industry. The lovely thing about all of that is getting to travel all over the United States, meet folks like yourself and others who are doing this. You learn so much.
Right.
And everybody's sort of in a bubble. So I get to kind of be this, I don't know, for me, it's this fun character that interviews people and finds out what's happening up here and what's happening over
and
here.
Connecting them, right? Yeah. I love that.
One of the first things we did was brought some flowers from the shed shop.
Yes.
From our last interview. And I love that he was just like, take these home. I said, well, we can't make them to Illinois. He said, where are you going next? I said, Jenna, LMJ Sheds. He said, take these to Jenna.
God, I love it. Right.
And say, I've never met her, but I'm a shed dealer, and tell her I love what she's doing. I don't even know what it is, but the fact that she's selling sheds, that kind of energy just really means a lot.
And I think and that's, for me, I've always, liked to learn from other people, right? So I've always I've been searching for that community, and people have been very kind. If I see something that's working for them, like I messaged somebody the other day about I love your or what plugin are you using on that, to list all of your inventory. And people were very good, not even Sheds Direct dealers, just in general. And I've tried to do the same within our district here. So we're the New York districts for Sheds Direct, and I've tried to visit the other lots. I don't look at them as my competition. We're all working for the same dealership.
Yep.
We all have different customers to service. So just having that community, and I think people have been very good. Now, there are people that have not been very good, it's give and take, but that's life.
I have experienced my fair share of negative stuff in the shed industry.
Right.
I don't speak publicly about it. I don't think it's edifying,
right,
to get on a microphone and do that. But I promise you, it would amaze people that there is a whole negative aspect and a whole negative side of things. I think it says a lot about you on who you want to be whenever you can take that. I was listening to the book, The Power of Positive Thinking, on the way up here. I'll saturate my mind with stuff like that whenever I get in the RV and we're going down the road, I want to always come back to seeing the positive in life, trying to see the positive in what I'm doing, not being a realist,
right?
Not saying I'm not naive, to those things. I have been at times, but I just choose to take that more positive approach when I can remember to do that.
Right.
And you're, like you said, you're not just your other dealers in Sheds Direct, but even your competition in general, even those who compete with you. I still say it's really not as much about taking a bigger piece of the pie. It's just making a bigger pie for all of us.
Right.
That way we just make a bigger market. And I think the more organization that you get with sheds and shed dealers and the shed industry in general, I think it just creates a better experience for the customer overall.
Right. No, I agree. And I think just in general, to be able to give our customers the opportunity to meet us, meet our family, they kind of know a little bit, they enjoy working with us. And their referral to other people really is what we're looking for, right?
Sure.
Just the word of mouth and getting it out there. So, I'm just so grateful for the people that have supported us up to this point, because it kind of was a shift in our lifestyle. Like I said, my daughter, so now we laugh about it, because she'll say, oh, I can't believe I still have to tell people you sell sheds. And I'm like, but I check off self-employed. So just tell them my mom owns a business, but I'm but now you're not laughing now when we go somewhere and I use my
you can
shed
pay
money,
for it, right?
Right.
That's right.
So it's just kind of leading by example, but and just working within the industry and learning something new every day, and going back to the people that are negative. I think it's the changing we've been talking about, the change with having to do a newsletter, having to keep up with Google My Business and Facebook Marketplace. And I think what it is a lot of the people that have been selling sheds for years, didn't have to do that, because people were coming onto their lot, just stopping by. But because now things are just different with technology, you kind of have to keep up with all of that stuff. So I see kind of a separation going forward in the shed industry. I don't know if you feel like that as well.
Yeah,
you've been around longer and you've seen it.
Well, no, I think you're right on. I think a lot of times builders just want to be builders, so they'd almost rather hire somebody to take care of that space for them. And I think a lot of times you are finding shed salespeople that find a way to reach people through ways that just weren't around. And some people appreciate those ways, and some people are more old-fashioned and they just want to sit on the lot, or they might be retired and they're not wanting to get into the hustle.
Right.
And that, I think that leaves opportunity and space for others who do want to hustle and who do want to get in there. And maybe it's not even hustle, is not even the right word, who just want to use new technology or new ways and opportunities to reach the customer.
Right.
It takes a lot, sometimes to learn some of these technological aspects of business. If you didn't grow up in this, you have to give a pass to some people. Like
Right.
my dad didn't grow up on a computer. Like I showed my dad how to like read a QR code on my phone because he still has like a flip phone. I can't even believe they give him one. I didn't even know that was, was still a thing. But, so I show him how to pull up a QR code, and like my dad thinks I'm a wizard. And I'm like, no, Dad, this is pretty standard for everybody. But for him, he's just like, what? He's like telling everybody, my son's real good on them computers. And I'm like, I'm actually not, at all. But it's do you want to take that space?
Right.
Are you motivated enough to want to do that? Do you have the drive to want to learn that? Or are you moving more toward retirement so you're fine with letting people take that space? I think one of the most, and this may get me in trouble, we're getting ready to go in the weeds here a little bit. One of the things that's been the most surprising to me is as shed manufacturers, especially consignment manufacturers, who hand out, I don't know, $50,000 to $200,000 worth of free inventory and put them on a lot, that they don't either require people to either start learning who've been with them for a long time or hire someone internally, or the manufacturer hires someone to help out. I understand they don't want to just kick people to the curb, but probably more than anything is that they're not vetting the people they bring on.
Right.
Are you vetting the people that you bring on to understand technology, to be able to understand the basic functions of, look, I've tried to teach people programs, whether it be 3D configurators or online sales platforms, without mentioning any names, just, whatever it is. I've tried to teach them how to use them. You're trying to still teach the basic computer functions to somebody. It's kind of like you'll pull your hair out, because it's not their fault, but they just didn't grow up on that technology. So you're trying to teach them the basic functions, and now here you are trying to teach them the inner workings and the user face of a software that's been developed. How do you do that whenever they really need to learn the basic functions? And I'm not mad at those folks, right? I'm not upset with them. I'm like, I understand where they are. You just have to meet them where they are. I'm just probably more surprised that I see a lot of the manufacturing not really vet for that. And it's not saying they're doing something wrong. Whatever they're doing seems to be working. I'm just kind of surprised.
Right.
So I hate to get in the weeds
too
deep on that, but that's probably the most surprising to me as it relates to the conversation. Managing your rent-to-own contracts just got easier with RTO Smart. Designed by leaders in the rent-to-own storage industry, RTO Smart was handcrafted to enable you with the tools needed to manage your own contracts your way without using a third-party rent-to-own company. RTO Smart is your one-stop shop, allowing you to generate contracts and manage customer accounts from start to finish while maintaining simplicity and flexibility. Call us today at 316-618-9396 or visit our website at rtosmart.com to schedule a live demo and discover why RTO Smart may be right for your business. I do think it's going that way. I do think you're going to have some basic level of understanding.
Right. And I think that if you don't, like, there's things that I don't understand or I don't want to spend my time on. I may understand it, but my time is more valuable used somewhere else, that I'm just going to hire somebody else to do it.
Sure.
And that's where I think that, not taking that control away, but just recognizing the value of the time that you have and your own knowledge and your own strengths. So like for me, moving forward, like I'm looking to hire somebody to do sales, right?
Yeah.
So I've reached out to a couple of dealers just to kind of see, like, what are you paying people? Like those type of conversations aren't happening, Like, what do you pay people? How do you do it? What software are you using? Are you using QuickBooks or Patriot software and so forth? So those are things that, and I recognize my weaknesses. It may not be to be that pushy salesperson, but somebody may enjoy doing that and making the commission. So my time could be more valuable updating the website to be able to get the inventory on there and so forth. So that's the direction that we're going now that I have kind of set down some sort of operations. We are opening up a third location in Montrose. So again, I've been training the girl that will be running it up there. It's her property. So we're kind of, I'm doing the back end and, we'll split the commission sort of thing. So I'll run the business and she'll run the sales type of thing. So I'm excited about that.
That's what you enjoy.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, and that's what it is. Like, so it's not that I'm a shed salesperson, right? Like, and I keep going back to saying I'm a business owner because it's the operation, the daily operations. Yep. It's not just selling sheds.
Yep.
You can't just sell sheds. There's so much more to the business that makes it successful and makes it enjoyable.
It's hard to write that on a resume. It's the same thing with I relate it to what I know, and I know the podcast. So it looks like this just comes together.
Right.
Like there's a whole lot of work that actually goes into this, whether it be, creating the email campaigns and making sure to get all the logos right. And you still mess up no matter how many times, like we double check it. We've got our systems and processes to try and double and triple check. And there'll actually be, it's kind of funny. I said we weren't addressing any of the negativity necessarily. And here I am super negative today. Like we've put stuff out on the email campaign and I've not heard from somebody for a year, but they'll make sure to point out I made a mistake.
Oh, yes.
They'll message me and be like, you misspelled that. You did this wrong. You
right.
got that guy the wrong name, whatever it is. It's like, some of those are really big and they're mistakes that we shouldn't be making and you learn along the way. But, I relate it to the podcast because it's kind of what I know. You're learning as you go.
Right.
You're doing the best you can. And it is a business. There's a whole business that's involved with it. So right. It's to simplify it as just shed sales. I think it's way more than that.
Right.
It's just kind of hard to put that on a resume. It's hard to write that out and explain it to people.
Exactly. And I find that, everything that I've gained, the knowledge that I've gained, the same thing. Like, how can I list all of those things that, go along with knowing the business,
yeah.
The strengths that I have and so forth. But the reward in the end is really, the customers and learning about their needs and fulfilling their needs. Like recently I had somebody order a 14 by 20 cottage, right? So he just moved here from Florida. He retired and he's always wanted to be an artist. So he's going to put an art studio. So nice. Designing it with him, and then I am so excited to be able to go down there when it gets delivered to see it. But it's not just because it's a building in the back of his yard. It's because his dream was to always be an artist. And he waited his whole life to do this. Now he's going to have his own art studio, at 62 or whatever he is. But just learning about the customers and fulfilling their needs. So whether it's storage or cottages, whatever they need and learning about that.
Well, from a sales perspective, especially, that's definitely one area that I love. I can't stop being a relationship builder. I think most salespeople out there, they want that. They crave sort of that relationship with the customer to dream with them. What are you going to do with this? For some people, they just need storage. Right. It's simple. They don't complicate it. They come in and say, hey, I need a place for my shovels and my lawnmower. And they're very practical.
Right.
And it's just kind of,
yeah,
you're just, it's more transactional.
Right. And those people though, because I used to be in a former lifetime when I said I blogged, I was a deal blogger, right? So I did couponing and deals. So those people I love because I'm like, okay, tell me what size you need. I'm going to find you the best deal in my district. They just, bare bones. They just want a good deal.
Yeah.
Then you have the other people that really want what they need certain things. They need to have windows on certain sides. They need to have a certain amount of storage. I laugh because I love when people are like, I don't know if I should go bigger or smaller. I'm like, nobody's ever said I wish I went smaller, right? But not
bigger.
that I want to upsell you, but no, nobody said, I wish I went smaller.
Nobody ever comes back and said, you sold me a shed too large.
Right.
Never happens. But you'll always hear, I didn't buy a big enough shed. It's just people like the space. You want the space. Same example with me in a camper. Like,
right. Oh,
I love it. Perfect for me and her. But, the only time you'll ever hear me say anything is like, it could be a little bigger.
Right.
Like, no matter what, you could probably be driving the biggest one on the road and you're like, you know what, they need to make this thing just a little bit more space over here.
Right.
And I think, I don't know, we just like our space.
Right.
I think what it boils down to. And whenever you're storing things, I mean, of course, why would you not need more? You got more space,
right.
You got more shopping to do, I guess. So
I know. And I wonder too, like, gosh, that would be a good business to be able to kind of trade up, right? Trade in your shed, your barely used shed to upgrade.
There's the interview that we did at the shed store, the guys we were talking about, they do that.
Yeah. Oh
and
my
and
God.
he was like, yeah, come on in. He said it's not as popular. We did that for a small time. We put a sign out that said trade-ins welcome. But what we found is a lot of people actually just wanted to get rid of their old shed.
Yes.
They didn't even necessarily want to, and I don't mean like a shed in good shape.
Right, and that's what it is.
There was a lot of times we would go out and like take or get rid of their old shed and just get rid of it because it wasn't worth keeping. But a lot of times made sense for the sale, and that was a really good source of referrals. And that's something I definitely miss. Like, it's weird, but I mean, I do really miss selling sheds sometimes.
Right.
I miss the relationships. I kind of miss, it's cool to be able to drive around and say, hey, I sold that shed, or recognize one just immediately that had been sitting on the lot for
that
a while.
is like the biggest thing, right? So I told you I was in Maryland this past weekend with my daughter for basketball, and basically driving all through like Route 1, I was like, oh my God, there's so many shed dealerships. Like, what kind of type of sheds are they? And then even driving through neighborhoods, like I'll say to my daughter, like, oh, that's almond with brown trim. Or even my sons, they're like, who cares? I'm like, the things that I notice, the colors,
awful,
of vinyl and metal roofs and things that I'm like, oh my God, I never knew about this stuff.
Without hesitation, I just, in the middle of a conversation with my wife, will be like, shed hauler.
Yeah.
Because I'll see them coming down the road with a shed, and I'll be looking because I'll see like the trailer. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm looking for the mule and see if it's a drop deck or whatever it is. And I'm like, shed hauler. And then just go right back to talking. Or see a shed lot where you're going down the road, you're just staring at it because you're just judging them.
Or why would they use that? Why would they get that siding? They could have got mist and it would have matched their house better. And I'm like, those things. And I'm like,
so who is Jenna the person? I want to get that on here before we go because I know you do a lot with sports.
Right.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So, I'm a former athlete. I coached all of my kids for basketball and sports, and seeing them grow up and kind of experience it from their perspective, it's just so rewarding to be able to have that time with them. So I think that's probably the biggest thing right now is just the season of life that I'm in. I'm really enjoying, watching my kids play the sports that they love, really encouraging them. And I think for them seeing my shift in careers, after 17 years being a teacher, I think that gave them permission to kind of pivot if they wanted to, like having conversations like, listen, like if you don't want to play this sport, even though you played it your whole life and you want to try something else, like go for it, like I think giving them the permission to pivot and try something new is probably the most rewarding for me because I've seen it in action, and had those conversations with them. So, and, having the family around me and working with my husband and seeing how hard he works and just enjoying the time together with the family and having them involved in the business and learn from the business, right? So they're seeing that the different opportunities that are non-traditional careers to go into. So it's not like, okay, where are you going to go to college? What are you going to study in college? You could either be a teacher, a doctor, or a lawyer, like giving them, there's like so many more opportunities. And I think I didn't realize that, after COVID, the flexibility that was out there, whether it was, maybe I don't have to teach in the classroom and I could work from home and teach online, or I could leave my teaching position and, you know, if I could replace the income and still do something that gives me the flexibility to be with my kids and make some money and enjoy that as well. And building a community around that, you know, like I feel like I've been that person to kind of lead by example and inspire others to do that.
Absolutely.
I know I've had conversations with people, like my biggest thing is like when I meet somebody that's like, can't wait to retire so then they could do what they want to do. I'm like, why can't you just do it?
Do
right.
it now.
So,
absolutely.
Right. So I think people like will say to me, because I did retire from teaching. I did because I had 17 years put in, right? So like I won't collect my pension until I'm older. But people are like, oh, you're not really retired. I'm like, yeah, I'm retired. Like, I'm not teaching anymore. I retired, but I'm still working. You know, like, it's just a matter of I didn't wait until I was 65 to retire and then try to do something I wanted to do.
We're just happy to find more opportunities to do what we want to do now instead of doing what we have to do to get by.
Right.
And I want to maintain that. Like, that's all that really matters to me. I'm not looking for... I don't know. Some guys have the I'm not happy until I have it all approach, and it's just definitely not me. I'm more searching contentment than I am riches and having it all. I have one guy that told me, he said, I can't even enjoy vacation anymore. He's become so successful. He's like, we don't even enjoy vacation because whenever we go somewhere, it's not even as nice as what we have at home. Right. And I'm like, that's actually a really sad comment. Right. You know, like that's... Like I'm sad for him. What I mean in that way is like you found success, but have you found happiness?
Right.
Right. So like you know, and I think happiness is contentment. I think a lot of times if you can be content with what you have and appreciate that in the moment, and that's sort of what you're talking about with your kids and this season of life that you're in. College athlete yourself.
Yes.
You played basketball.
Yep.
And then you have done not just blogging, but podcasting before?
I have, yeah. So, and even like, so on my side hustle from my side hustle, I guess, from podcasting, you know, that opened up opportunities for me to do some podcast editing for local businesses. Mm-hmm. So just kind of like dabbling in, keeping up with my creativity and doing some things here and there. So it's everything that I've learned along the way. When I look back from, you know, my education and then the different jobs that I've had, and it's all taking me full circle to where I am. Yep. And I'm utilizing almost everything that I've learned, you know.
I used to struggle with that. I used to say, why am I going through this, God? And now it's like, wait a minute. I can look back now and see that all of that led me on a path to exactly where I am.
Even being a former athlete, you know, just my health is so important to me, taking the time to meditate in the morning and get it and go for a walk with my dog. And those are things, again, I know I have so much to do throughout the day, you know, between the business and the kids and you know, running just the household, but making sure that I take time for myself. And I think my kids see that as well. And it's just, again, modeling for them that it's important to take time for yourself.
What was your podcast about?
So my podcast was the Hat Club. It was like geared towards women that wear many different hats. So I would interview different women and learn, again, that just learning about their lifestyle and how they balance it, right? Because but I glorified the hustle, you know, so I kind of stepped back because it's not all about the hustle. It's about enjoying the little moments, you know? So, and maybe in the future I'll podcast again. My sister and I did Soul Sisters. We talked about, you know, our athleticism, and, you know, we interviewed different women that are successful, that were athletes in the past, and kind of just, you know, showing that you could be successful as a woman type of thing, but just hanging out. It was more about hanging out with my sister. Yeah. So I'm like, Carol, when are we going to podcast again? And it's just because it's fun, you know, like there's no hidden agenda of trying to make money. It was something to do fun. And it eventually, you know, with blogging, I just blogged because I enjoyed it. And then it did become a business and it made money. And podcasting, I could see how it could become a business. And
it's like, it surprised me. It was, but it still is a labor of love. Right. You know, like Deanna had, you know, found out that she had cancer. And this is the same time we were thinking about. And I was like, gosh, you know, I was working in Rent-A-Own, and I was kind of tired of, this competitive business, that knocking on doors. We use our service, you know, and you're trying to build relationships. And it was like, how do I bring the customer to me instead of going to the customer? And it was like, just add value. Right. Start adding value. Right. Add value for no cost to to their lives. I spent the money on the board and the,
Right.
everything. I mean, we went maybe, I don't know. I think I went like maybe $6,000 in at first and was like, and I don't even know if I'm going to get business out of this. It's just, let's do this because I enjoy this. I'm seeing all these other people. And it was like, I don't know, maybe I'll get business out of it. Maybe I won't. I didn't really have like this
agenda. It
was just kind of like, I enjoy this. So I'm going to do this, even if it makes no money, if nothing else. And then whenever someone started asking to be able to advertise on it, that was probably the biggest surprise for me. Cause it was like, whoa, I need to have a organized way to monetize this. Right. So it's 2 years in, it's going great. Yeah. 2 shows.
And it's just taking it one day at a time, right? Like I say that all the time, like I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, right? Like, I don't know what I want to do 5 years from now. Like, yeah, like I'll still run the business, but like maybe I'll dabble back in podcasting. But right now I'm where I need to be with my family in the season that I'm in and just enjoying every minute of it. So
one of my favorite moments was even during this trip, and somebody asked me, they said, so what do you do for a living? And I was like, what? And they was like, what do you do? Who do you work for? Like, what do you do? And I was like, I work for myself. What do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? And they was like, you just travel all over the country and talk to shed people? I was like, yeah. Like I do. I talk like shed people and people that are in sales or people that are in construction, like people that could complement, a conversation about our business, even if they're not directly in and of the business. And they're like, so what, like, you like super wealthy that you can just go around and do this? No, absolutely not. This is like my business. It's costing me to be out here. And you know what I mean? There's fuel and there's the cost of everything that you're doing. I was like, no, absolutely not. I'm doing this seriously as a labor of love, but it's also something that, creates a revenue stream. And then I dump that back in. But it's this whole fun thing. And I thought it was kind of funny that he was like, you have to be super wealthy to be able to do that. And I was like, gosh, no, I'm anything but super wealthy.
Well, it's funny that how people perceive that, right? You know, like I went in, I had an opportunity because of my business knowledge. I was asked to go into Penn State Scranton Extension this past year, both semesters, to work with students, right? I'm an educator at heart. So I was like, yeah, I would love to teach my knowledge to somebody else. So one of the students, when I was telling my story and my background, they were like, oh, like you just left your job because your husband has a full-time job, so you're able to would you just leave if you knew that there was no risk, and it was like, yeah, because I knew that I had the knowledge to be successful and I knew what was capable for me. Like, was it scary? Like, anything new is scary, right? But like, I'm thinking, like, you guys are all 18 to 22. Like, take your risk now, if anything. Like, but they kind of made it like, oh, like you must be your husband must be rich if you were able to do that. And I was like, no, I've got 3 kids and a ton of bills.
I always tell people, come visit me at home.
I know.
We're pretty modest and we live in the best home we've ever lived in. But let me take you where we started, okay? And let me show you the journey. And let me show you the 2 to 3 homes or 3 to 4 homes that we had to go through and work your way into this, or the struggle, the job, the blood, the sweat, the tears, like the nights, the weekends, the holidays, how many birthdays have I missed? How many, like it's not it's an American story whenever you're doing this, like it's really, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but that's the way I feel like it is. It's you have risk and you have reward and you go seek it. And I think trust God in your decision and pray about it and take a leap of faith and just go make it happen. I would have never, expected this would have happened. I think people need the encouragement. I think there should be somebody and I'm sure there are several people already doing a podcast for that reason, to just encourage people. So the Soul Sisters that you were doing, the Hat Club, all of that, very important. And I think more people should do it. Podcasting is growing at a rate faster than the internet did whenever it started. I expect that to slow down, but I think that's the beauty of it is when people say you just talk about sheds, I'm like, of course, because we're not broadcasting. We're podcasting. We're talking about one niche specific thing. So, Jenna, I can talk to you for days. We're already an hour in. It's kind of crazy how fast the time, it always does whenever you're podcasting. Especially when you have someone so easy to talk to. I appreciate getting to know you. You bought some Shed Life stickers from me, and that's kind of how we got connected.
Yes, definitely.
And you know what? You gave me like some LMJ hats and shirts. We brought up some hoodies and stuff. I don't know what I have left, but I got to make sure to send you some goodies. And certainly appreciate you sitting down with me, telling me your story. I think everyone has a story in the shed industry, and I think everybody outside of the industry does as well. But I like to tell their stories here. So thank you for sitting down with me. I appreciate it.
Definitely. Yes. Thank you.
Wish you lots of luck and continued success on your endeavor now.
Same to you. Yeah, same to you. And I look forward to like keeping up with this relationship. And I think that's what's important. And I'm glad that you came back, and I appreciate everything that you're doing for the shed industry.
Well, hey, thanks for being a wonderful host. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right.